bottle opener, this corkscrew.
All right, we're live. What's up? This is LT. I'm here with Trav. Today we're going to be looking at some very great, insightful comments about the Lumpenproletariat that Maupin made. Maupin being an intellectual powerhouse always has to come out with the fantastic takes about the Lumpen and completely disregard millions of Americans who are suffering the most when it comes to exploitation and really rewrite that Marxist history. So let's just dive into it. I mean, I'm just dying to dive into it.
Socialism comes by bringing millions of people into motion and building a coalition, a popular front of labor unionists, of peasants, of workers, community organizations. It doesn't come by blowing shit up and engaging in left adventurism. And these people, that is fantasy. That like the revolution happens because I organize a bunch of poor people that are like gangsters, and we get guns and we like shoot people. That's what like this. What is his name? Left. What is it? What's his name? I didn't even remember his name. One of these doofuses who's attacking me. It's like he thinks the Lumpenproletariat are revolutionary because he's got this like gun fantasy, and he wants to make everybody poor, right? He likes the lockdowns because it's making people poor, and that'll like make him more revolutionary, man. It's like this is childish thinking. It has nothing to do with Marxism. This is Blanquism. This is Punchism.
Very
this is
Blanc,
ultra
very
leftist.
push.
You never support making life worse for the working class, and that.
So I'm just gonna halt it right there. So everything he says is obviously completely true. I mean, the reason why I spend hours sitting here and reading and learning all these things is I'm just trying to find a better way to screw normal people like me over. That's really my main intention. I mean, Maupin likes to sit here and Maupin likes to say that I am trying to blow people up, that I'm trying to make people poor. I mean, it's all true. What do you think? Trav? Do you think that when we have revolution, it's going to be pretty and rainbows?
I think
like what
that
Mark said. Yeah.
I think that Caleb Maupin is like the male version of a Karen, and I think that the vision or brand, the vision of socialism that he very much tries to push, is one that is very compatible with a middle class 1950s, 1960s way of life. I think that he tries way too hard to pander to this imaginary demographic that doesn't exist. These phantom moderate, conservative, white middle class people with socialist sympathies. Like, it's just an imaginary demographic. And that, I mean, yeah, like all he's doing is just straw manning you. He's just straw manning you. He's straw manning Jason. He's just straw manning us, really.
Yeah.
Like what anybody I don't like is lumpen. Like I don't really know what he means by that.
Well, it's so funny because when I was arguing with that Flame of Liberation professor, that doctor, I came up with the argument, right, that every semi truck that goes out onto the highways, they have to pass a Department of Transportation checklist, and they're only capital. They're not personal vehicles. They're not they're not personal property. They're only private property. So every single Canadian trucker that's there is a sole employed private property owner, right? And that makes them petty bourgeois, middle class, according to Marx. But apparently, I'm stomping on. And you know what? When they go out and they block ports and they stop capital from flowing across borders back and forth, that's a bad thing. I mean, we want, obviously, as communists, we want capital to be, we want super profits up the wazoo. Obviously, I mean,
happens because I organize a bunch of poor people that are like gangsters, and we get guns and we like shoot people. That's what like this. What is it?
I mean, the Soviets, like
what is it?
The Petrograd.
I remember his name.
The Petrograd Soviets. The Petrograd Soviet. Not a single firearm. Not a single shot was fired in the Bolshevik Revolution.
What's being slept on right now is you just taking that and adding a sample track and a sick beat to the back of that and just looping it and turning that into a full-on rap. That shit would be so funny. Turn that into a full-on rap and send it back to Maupin.
I can't think of anyone more gangster than Maupin. I mean, Newton going out and having people beaten up, it doesn't even compare to this crime lord.
Poor, and that'll like make them more revolutionary, man. It's like this is childish thinking. It has nothing to do with Marxism. This is Blanquism. This is Punchism. This is ultra leftist. You never support making life worse for the working class. And bad situations
Nobody
on
is
their
saying
own don't
that.
lead to revolution. If a bad situation comes and it just makes life worse, but there's no mass proletarian organization to lead resistance, it actually just demoralizes people. Communists don't want everyone's wages to go down. Communists don't want schools in working class neighborhoods to close. Communists don't want the roads to start crumbling. Communists don't want life.
I mean, Maupin, you're reading me like a book here. I mean, you understand me more than I know my own self. When I look at normal people, I want their lives to get ruined. I mean, it's not like I was critiquing the truckers because they're petty bourgeois and because they want ports to open so their capital can flow. It's exactly like Marx said. Capitalism isn't a pipeline of capital flowing in exchange. There is no MCM circuit. Okay, we're not buying and selling capital constantly. I mean, apparently to Maupin, everything is fine, and revolution's gonna. When Mao came out and he said revolution is not a dinner party and that violence was necessary, when Mao launched an investigation into the peasants and he realized that violent revolution was going to be necessary, I had no idea. And if the thumbnail's messed up, I'll change it later. But
No. I mean, just check it out now.
Check it out now.
Yeah, just check it out. Go ahead and open it up, and I
Yeah,
don't care if you leak DMs.
Yeah. Well, let's.
Yeah, just pull it up on screen. Like, I don't care if you leak DMs, dude. Just go.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
Shit.
Pretty much. That's whole response in a nutshell, basically.
No, obviously he just understands me more than I understand myself. And it's so funny, this little quip he does where he goes, "Who is this guy? This leftism today?" Like, he literally just commented like 5 times in a meme video I made about him, where he tries to whitewash the Bolsheviks and say that the Bolsheviks weren't that the Bolsheviks never committed any crime. The Tiflis robberies, Stalin sticking up trains, that stuff never happened. Okay, the Bolsheviks were God-fearing Christians. Stalin was a thug, dude. Like Huey P. Newton was a thug. I'm not saying do we have to all be thugs who like beat up old women and children and old ladies? No, but to sit here and be a little ginger wimp who doesn't do any, has no backbone at all.
Yeah, no. The thing is that the act of revolution itself is straight up a violent crime. So it's fundamentally, there is a component of illegal work that does need to be done. I mean, that'd be nice if we actually had like an actual org that was off doing that sort of thing. But orgs in America are incredibly fractured, and they're all really just protest groups. I don't really think anybody is out and about fucking robbing banks to pay their cadre a salary. On the contrary, at a lot of these orgs, you gotta pay dues. You got to pay dues to be part of these protest and party groups, and it just seems like it's a windmill that churns people out, and they just get burned out, and nothing really gets done. So,
yeah, I mean, no. Lenin said that when revolution would happen, we would be
get bad
on the yachts,
and there's no mass movement of resistance. And there's no
vanguard. Hold on.
What's up?
You should those quotes on my community post here. I'll actually link those up to you in the Discord. Those will actually come in handy because he's talking about living standards going down.
I was reading those quotes earlier, and when Lenin says that the socialists in the working class of a country are going to have to accept the degradation of their living standards for revolution, I mean, obviously, what Maupin said was your PS5 would be cheaper. Okay, that's what Maupin means. Yeah.
Well,
it can't be achieved without sacrifices. Go on, yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that we're talking about ending one system. Like, people need to understand they're going to have to be willing to make self-sacrifices or sacrifices in the short term. That doesn't mean things are going to be bad forever, but life is going to get harder before it gets easier. But in the long term, we're going to be better off for it because, I mean, America is consuming at a rate that's like 4 to 5 times what is sustainable for this planet. So something has got to give in that regard. Same with our car culture. Cars need to go. We need more public transit. We need to learn to live with the planet instead of just on it. We need to learn to actually like have a relationship with our community and the environment, and instead of just being these ravenous consumers that just buy shit and then throw it away whenever it breaks because it's planned obsolete to go in the seas of landfills across the country. Maupin is basically, again, his message is very, very tailored to middle class, like a very middle class tailored type of socialism that he's trying to sell here. From what I hear, he's not really presenting an alternative. So, I mean, make of that as you will.
Well, I mean, you're gonna see his endorsement of the peasants, but at the same time, orthodox Marxist Maupin, who comes out, he's out here banging these quotes from the Brumaire of Bonaparte, but doesn't want to, quote the part where Marx says that peasants are individual families of producers and that they're going to fall for, reactionary sovereigns. They're just going to become reactionary forces. Here, I'll play it.
It only demoralizes things. And furthermore, left adventurism and terrorism is not how revolutions happen. Revolutions are based on working people in their millions, mobilizing, building combinations and coalitions to fight for what they want and asserting their power. And they do become violent when they have no choice. When the ruling class is looking to crush their peaceful democratic organizations, they have to defend themselves. But ultra-left adventurism has always led to what it led to in Peru, isolating the revolutionaries from the masses, enabling the capitalist state to have a huge crackdown and suppress the revolutionaries. Serious organizers and revolutionaries do not advocate left adventurism and terrorism. And the idea that we want life to get worse for the broad masses because then they'll be like violence, man. And the idea that
this is the thing I can't stand about Maupin, or this is what I really don't like about Maupin more than anything else, is the false dichotomies, or just how he misrepresents his detractors. He's making it out to be like we want life to get worse for people. It's not that we want life to get worse for people. It's going to come down to self-sacrifices for the greater good because we got a planet to save, basically. And also because the way we're living life now is unsustainable. It's going to ultimately come down to change. And I mean, people are going to have to it's going to take a pretty big shift in just people's psychology. But in regards to the whole left adventurism thing, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of irrelevant.
No, like I was saying in my debate with that FLO guy that there's no ethical consumption under capitalism because everything is a product of exploitation. Everything you buy in like a store, and I shortened it to there's no ethical consumption, and Maupin just like exploded, like he was getting flashbacks, like Malthus was appearing in front of him, and I was the avatar of Malthus because I said we shouldn't just endlessly buy a billion products that are probably made by Indonesian underage child slave labor, in capitalism. I mean, Maupin has zero concern about the actual productive labor. Maupin says that and we'll get to that, by the way, where Maupin conflates first world service sector workers with actual productive workers in the third world, because the first world is leeching value off of the third world. We don't actually produce anything of value. Like what I do, what so many millions and millions of Americans do, we don't produce value. We do service sector jobs. So
the Lumpenproletariat, the desperately poor and criminalized
I have some commentary on that.
Yeah, go on.
We do produce value, but there's a chain of exploitation, if that makes sense. As weird as this sounds, first world workers in the aggregate are more exploited, like in terms of like the Marxian definition, but like the second and third world, it's really hard to explain. It's been a bit since I've brushed up on my imperialism in the 21st century, but no, I mean, in the third world, they actually farm up all the fruit that gets shipped in. They mine the ore out and they process it in the foundries, and it's through tariffs are a common way, like a lot of revenue comes in and like markups. So companies will purchase it. They're coming in from these countries for pennies on the dollar, and they just get marked up substantially and hyperinflated and when they come inside the United States. I mean, why do you think it is like you can take $10 down to Mexico and you can buy so much with it, but then when you come here to America, it's $10 isn't really going to get you that much. It's because of that markup between the first and the third world. I hope what I'm saying makes sense.
Yeah, and well, we're gonna see just the cherry picking that Caleb Maupin does when it comes to who's revolutionary or not. We're gonna see that.
That basically are pushed to the margins of society and are so desperately poor they'll work for anybody. That's who we should be organizing, not average working class people who want a better life. This is all just an ultra leftist deviation that serves the ultra rich, right? Louis Bonaparte. If you actually read where Karl Marx talked about the definition of the Lumpenproletariat, he talked about how Louis Bonaparte built an army of desperately poor people, the Society of December 10th, to beat down the rest of the working class, to beat down his enemies in the capitalist class, and stabilize capitalism. And that's a trick that since the time of the Roman Empire, you've had this. The Gracchi brothers and others.
Yeah, and it's so. First of all, Caleb calls the Navalny supporters the Lumpenproletariat, like this group of thugs who are going to beat down Russian patriots. He actually, in a community or I believe a tweet, he called the Navalny supporters the Lumpenproletariat and thugs and miscreants. And Caleb Maupin is just really selective on what he wants to quote from the 18th Brumaire, because he's out here in his last live stream, his Wednesday live stream. He's flexing with he has a physical copy of the 18th Brumaire. But in the 18th Brumaire, Marx talks about the peasants, and Marx talks about the fact that the peasants got Napoleon III in. Okay, the peasants support the sovereigns because of this reactionary brainwash. This is all according to Marx. Because of this reactionary brainwashing about the sovereigns having a mandate from heaven, or the sovereigns, being supported by the papacy, okay, supported by the Catholic Church. So, and also these peasants, according to Marx, during the time of the 18th Brumaire, were not supposed to be revolutionary because they weren't organized like the proletariat. They didn't have that intercommunication with each other. They were just groups of separate peasant self-sustaining families. So they couldn't be a class that would perform revolution in China, right? So obviously my point is that Marx can be wrong about certain things. And Marx actually was pretty much lumpen himself. I mean, most of his life he got off by just getting off of whatever angles gave him.
Yeah, so, most of his life he spent in exile, or basically as a criminal, hiding from various governments around Europe. Like, he was constantly on the run. He was constantly being harassed. He was so poor at some point, like he couldn't even afford to take care of his kids. Like, Marx actually has sacrificed a lot in order to do what he did. And I don't know. Just Caleb is an example of someone who just spends way too much time on the internet and thinks he matters way more than he actually does. Like, this dude gets involved in like Twitter wars with people. Like, I mean, he's stonewalled me, but I'm sure if I made enough content, like just talking shit about Caleb, he would eventually just recognize me. I mean, he's just that type of dude. He thinks the whole world's out to get him. He thinks he's so important. He's just insulated, well-to-do book merchant. Caleb Maupin is little more than a humble book merchant with a cult following. That is all he is. He's basically like Bob Avakian.
Yeah, I mean, well, now we have this funny drama going on with like Keaton Mansfield. Apparently, he's supposed to be a transgender chaser. Like, all of a sudden, it's just gonna go the way of the RCP. It's just gonna go the way where it's just gonna become a sex cult. And it's so funny because it's not even supposed to be a political party. It's supposed to be a think tank. But the thing is with these nerdy, weird cults is that they always go the way of the RCP. They become little
book clubs,
little radical sex cults, really.
Yeah, little book clubs. They just sell books. Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
If you want to wave your American flag and you want to have your the message that you're trying to carry out, I mean, that's fine. It is towards his targeted audience, which is basically just middle class conservatives, as far as I can tell. But you're not going to draw in like any of the people that actually want to actually stand to gain and actually want to overthrow the system. I mean, it's just the way it is. No, like, I'm not even specifically talking about like Black and Indigenous people, but those are revolutionary demographics. Like, I mean, really, it just comes down to like, I mean, I hate to say it, but like income is a big part of it. Like, you're gonna have more in common with someone who's within your income bracket versus just uh like someone who's like top 5% of income earners, just lives in a clean, insulated neighborhood, just away from the widespread poverty in the countryside.
Yeah, I mean, well, apparently the American people are supposed to be closer to these small business owner, petty bourgeois people than they are to the lumpen proletariat. You know, like Caleb Maupin comes out, he talks about oh these evil black and Latino people. They do crime and they join gangs and all this stuff. They're not connected to the community at all. When most likely those people have family members in the community. Those people have family in the community that they're tied to, and to just write them off as saying, well, they break. Oh, he violated bourgeois law. Oh, he stole from Target. Well, you know, a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate with insurance on all their property anyway. Oh, he stole from them. He's a criminal. And then at the same time, turn around and support people like Huey Newton, who was an actual thug. Huey Newton was a thug, guys. Like Huey educated himself. He got a PhD. But he was still like a tough guy, okay? And Stalin was a tough guy. Stalin was a conservative, backwater, strong man, really. But like now we're supposed to lose all our strength, lose all of our passion, and get a big fancy bookshelf behind us. That's what we're supposed to do, and walk around and wave the Russian national flag, like Lenin would have wanted us to do. Yeah.
Bonapartist figures will mobilize the desperately poor and marginal, build an army of them to beat down the rest of society in order to stabilize capitalism. This guy hates FDR. He hates FDR. It's like, it's like basically the lumpen are utilized to do what FDR did. He stabilized capitalism with reforms. So, and FDR did a lot of good progressive stuff because he was aligning with the Soviet Union. And that again, these people, they have an analysis where it's like, is this person a communist or not?
So what do you think about that, Trav? What do you think about me being sacrilegious towards the papacy of Roosevelt? What do you think?
I think you're doing the right thing because Roosevelt was just a concession more than anything else. Anti-socialist, anti-communist. I mean, look, like right after World War II. I mean, this wasn't during FDR; it was after. I mean, because he died. But I mean, that they cleaned house. Like right after World War II, they cleaned house. They just had all the unions purge all the socialists and communists from it. A bunch of people got purged from like popular office positions of power and authority, and in like the years coming you had the Red Scare and McCarthyism and so on. And
Yeah, I mean,
I really don't understand. I mean, I understand why Caleb Maupin, because again, it's the middle class he's trying to pander to, so the closest thing he can like reach to where they can relate to some kind of left-wing figure is Franklin D. Roosevelt, even though like pretty much every president that we've ever had just sucks dick. Like fuck all the U.S. presidents, fuck them all. None of them are good. Maybe there might be a few exceptions here and there, but like virtually every president that I think we've ever had has not been great. But that's just a byproduct of America just being a dictatorship of capital, basically.
well, Andrew Jackson. Okay, even though he did some wrong things, I think he was a pretty progressive guy overall. The Trail of Tears.
Yeah, Trail of Tears. Good shit.
I mean, how about the fact that he shot down his wife's initiative to ban lynching federally for black people? I mean, I don't know about progressive, but that's on the top of my list. And it's all for those Dixiecrat votes. I mean, that you are outside of the elections in the polity of the liberal national bourgeois when you're appealing towards a reactionary base in the South, these Dixiecrats. And yeah, I mean, FDR did such great things for black people. That's why he ignored thousands of letters for black people that were begging for help in the South. I mean, you could read countless letters of barely literate black people writing to FDR, begging for help. Absolutely no conception. FDR, for 2 points. First of all, FDR was like the father of all these neoliberals, like Pinochet and Yeltsin and Margaret Thatcher and Reagan. FDR was the father of that. He was the first person who put his foot down and really just really went hard on trying to stomp out socialism by participating in the social democracy. And people forget that social democracy in the 70s, it came out in all of these SOC Dem, these market socialist economists like Nova in Britain, all of these people, they came out. They were all invented as a result of the Soviet Union's popularity, right? They were trying to appeal to them. I mean, if millions of people want to go see the band Metallica and you can't give them that band, so you appeal to them with another similar band. You know what I mean? That's exactly what FDR did. FDR was a friend of the Communist Party. Not really, not when he was being threatened to be overthrown. I mean,
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, but the thing is that there was actually like a component of a labor movement as well. But I mean, look what ended up happening. Inevitably, like Fordism got rolled back, Keynesianism got rolled back in the 70s, and then we got neoliberalism.
yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, we need class antagonisms to reach their highest point. Like, that's how we're not gonna have revolution by saying, okay, we can have this little couple year program where we're gonna build some bridges, build some dams, and then everything. Like does Caleb Maupin want to build bridges and build? What if FDR came back and FDR wanted to build some bridges and build some dams? Like, would we do that or socialism? It's very silly. No, I'm wrong. I'm wrong.
It's like these people attack me for supporting Lincoln. Well, I don't support Lincoln because I think he was a communist, but he entered an alliance with communists to defeat slavery. That was good, right? And that Lincoln represents a progressive trend, and Lincoln was very heavily influenced by Marx. And there's loads of scholarship about this, about August Willich and Joseph Wedemeyer and the role of Marxists in the Union Army, and how New York Tribune, the main Republican Party newspaper in New York City, hired Karl Marx as its
All right,
correspondent.
I have something
Now
to say
it's
about the
required that
slavery
you-
business. So, what got the ball really rolling on ending slavery more than anything else was the Haitian Revolution and
Yeah.
the emergence of industry in the North and the coming boom. It really, what was going on is you had slave revolts. Slavery was really just on its way out the door, and they saw the writing on the wall. So, as like a little minor token concession to like black people, like, yeah, we're gonna let you have you free, but we're just gonna completely fucking disenfranchise you economically and rob you of any chance you have of any sort of self-determination. Establish all these racist ass laws, and like segregation and so on. So it doesn't really like do that much good. So there's still just like a permanent underclass, and they still feel the effects and impacts of such policies to this day. So like, I'm not really gonna. I mean, I guess you could say it was progressive, but like, I mean, that's not a very high bar to reach. Fucking slavery. There were plenty of places in the world that outlawed it by then. America never needed to have slavery in the first place. They could have outlawed that shit on the spot. So like, no, I don't give credit. They could have dealt away with that way sooner. Instead, they kept it around because profits, because America fucking sucks. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the Haitian Revolution literally happening right next to like right on your doorstep, and then
writing on the wall, man. They saw the writing
on the wall. I mean, and to see, like, it's so funny how Caleb sits here. I don't want to do this whole id poll thing, but Caleb sits here as a white guy, and he's like, well, look at at least we freed you guys. You guys might have been 1/3 of a human being. I mean, there's no, like, honestly, there's really barely even an excuse at that point, because like, look at Huey Long, for example. Huey Long was extremely revolutionary for black people in his time, against all odds, against all pushback. And Huey Long was extremely radical. But to sit here and to assume that every single human being saw black people as less than human, and that Lincoln was just going along with it. I mean, we could say, and it's so funny because Maupin sits on his Twitter and he says, "Oh, Augustus Caesar was pretty progressive for his time," and it's like, what? Like, what are these progressives we're talking about here? I mean, it's really silly. Like, where do we draw this progressive? I think someone who's progressive is someone like Mao, someone who looks at his nation someone who's fighting with the 28 and a half Bolsheviks and they're stupid. And that's a point that I wanted to bring up is Maupin is actually the real ultra leftist here, because in his Wednesday live stream, he claims that only the value producing class can engage in revolution. When in reality, the entire point of Mao Zedong thought is that the peasants were a class who were able to be organized. They launched an investigation into the proletariat, or into the peasants, and the peasants were organized, and the peasants launched a revolution, and that's how the Chinese Revolution happened. But no, apparently the Lumpen are just like Lumpen, who are mostly Latino and brown people, by the way, Latino and black people. Oh, they're just too dumb. They're just dumbasses, honestly. No, I mean Huey Long, John Brown, all these abolitionists. I mean, Lincoln may have considered black people, like a 1/3 of a human being, but that's extremely progressive for his time. Extremely, wow, to consider people 1/3 of a human being. Yeah. Anyway.
United front the labor movement was part of, and included Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, and how it was really the defeat of slavery in the United States was the Second American Revolution. These people don't know any of that. They just know, like, I like guns, man. I like revolution. I'm going to get a gun, and I'm going to get like gangsters, and we're going to be like revolutionary, man. And I want everyone to be poor so they can become gangsters. And I mean, it's just the stupidest crap. These people are dumb. They're overgrown teenagers. They're LARPing. Some of us are actually trying to save our country from what's happening right now. We see people in the United States who are starving, and their relatives dying.
Dude takes himself way too seriously.
I think Maupin forgets sometimes that, like, I'm just a dude with a computer in his room. Like, I think Maupin forgets that, like, we're all just people with computers in our rooms. And then what is this weird straw manning? Like, oh, I'm sorry, Maupin. I'm so sorry. I want to hurt the capitalists' profits. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I don't want global imperialist powers that exploit South American workers by giving them 10 cents a day to farm like 50 pounds of bananas and then ship that through on the backs of petty bourgeois trucks in Canada. I'm so sorry. I don't want all those bananas to go through and for a bunch of exploitative, fruit companies in South America to make a ton of profit. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Maupin. I'm just not as perfect as Caleb Maupin, guys. I mean, let me look at the comments. Lincoln said he'd keep slavery if it kept the Union together. Interesting. It just happened that in order for the USA to happen, it had to continue to end slavery. Yeah, I mean, like we established, the Haitian Revolution was the beginning of slavery had already been ending for so long, but the Haitian Revolution was already the nail in the coffin. I mean, Lincoln was late. People forget that Lincoln was very late on slavery. Caleb is corny. He's a little.
We see the big lines outside of Catholic charities. We see the people.
In all seriousness, though, you could totally turn this into a rap track.
Absolutely. Funny. I mean, Caleb, just an absolute friend of Black and Latino people, understands us so well. Understands us so well. I mean, because that's the thing we want to be doing is not looking at our community members. We want to be reading
capitalism
books.
Is destroying America right now, and we're not going to defeat it by going, yeah, I want to be a gangster. We're going to defeat it by building real organizations, organizing the broad masses of people, building a real coalition of people, united, who don't agree on everything, to fight for economic rights. That's how we're going to win, right? And we're going to win, and we're going to work with people we disagree with, and we're going to talk about how we don't want to make life worse in America. We want to make life better. And we are going to talk about how only socialism can save America, how imperialism is responsible. Imperialism is responsible.
I really wonder what Caleb's thoughts are if you, like, let's say like the Teamsters went on strike or something random like that, and nobody was able to get their goods. I wonder how Caleb would respond to that, because if truckers went on strike like that, or any other supply moving industry went on strike like that, like all our prices would go up. All of our prices in America would go up. If there was a manufacturer strike, like let's say we had a manufacturing plant that produced cars and they went on strike, and then the price of cars went up. The price of cars would be ridiculously high for working class people. But at the end of the day, it's like Lenin said, you have to accept concessions you have to accept that materially things are going to get worse before you can make things better. I mean, when all of these national bourgeois revolutions were happening, the feudal order, a lot of these people were dying for religious purposes. Like a lot of these people believed that the sovereigns were in fact mandated from heaven. Like you were fighting God. You were a heretic if you went against the Catholic Church. And I draw comparisons to Maupin here. I mean, I'm a heretic. I'm going against the papacy of Jack Ma, the socialist Chinese billionaires. So I don't know.
No.
Don't you mean? Yeah. Caleb, Lincoln wanted to deport African Americans to Africa, but he was killed before it could be debated in Congress. Very progressive. Ship them back. That's progressive. I see.
Yeah, get him out of here.
Get them out of our white nation. That's what I think of.
Responsible for the crisis. They're the same big banks and multinational corporations that are destroying the lives of American workers are also waging wars overseas and keeping countries around the world poor. We're going to build an anti-imperialist united front among the broad masses of people. That's how it works, all right? And you want to do this, you have this fantasy that you're never actually going to do. You're just going to sit in your apartment and you're gonna sit in your home and LARP on the internet and pretend you're Presidente Gonzalo. You're never going to do anything. And you have this fantasy that I'm going to run around with a gun, man. I'm so badass. Grow up. Like, some of us are serious about this. Some of us
This
are
shit's
building
pure
real
projection
organizations.
coming from Caleb.
I mean, the dude with the bookshelf behind him wants to talk about LARP and growing up. I mean, I don't think he realizes that much of the communist movement has been anti-intellectual, like not necessarily anti-intellectual, but not really springing from intellectuals. It's springing from the masses, like people like me, people like you, Trav. Not intellectuals like Caleb.
Yeah, I don't really have that much commentary left besides, I mean, I don't really have that much to say about Caleb. He's just not that interesting to me. I've got a lot of other subjects with respect to what I want to talk about in the future on my channel. Someone wants me to cover the French elections because apparently shit's getting real in France surrounding their elections of their new prime minister. I actually need to start doing some research on that.
Yeah, I mean, well, at the end of the day, look, here's the thing when it comes to Maupin. Maupin is a block queen. Maupin is a stonewaller. Maupin's not interested in actual discussion. That's why he blocks. Like, look at this like weird sneak diss he has to do, where he pretends to not know my name, and then he turns around and puts out false information, like
he knows who
and strawmans me. Yeah, he knows who I am. He's just being silly, and he'll never actually have an adult discussion with me about any of my ideas. So make of it what you will. You know, I've almost been going for an hour now, so. I mean, if anyone has anything to add, I mean, the mid-30s dingus that tries to get paid off a small YouTube channel accuses others of not growing up. No. I have Peter Pan syndrome, guys. In this weird, like, anti-arm... Like, does he realize the entire platform of the Black Panthers was arming themselves, right? Like, that's why the Black Panthers were... I can't think of the proper word for it, but...
Man.
Take it so seriously? I mean... Yeah.
No, man, Mason, you're picking a terrible time to call me. Well, and I gotta take that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Anyway. No, that's why the Black Panthers were taken seriously, guys. It's because they had guns. Like Huey P. Newton, when Huey P. Newton talked about gun control, he didn't go on a long rant about how we need to, put down the gun. It's you're being an adventurous. You know, Huey Newton, you're being an adventurous by picking up a gun, Huey Newton. Like, in picking up a gun, I mean, like, people are gonna say, "Oh, so you're talking about shooting people?" No, I mean, the takeover of Kerensky's government was like bloodless anyway. Like does Lenin or does Maupin not even realize that when the Bolsheviks took over Kerensky's government, the Petrograd Soviet, they already had like mass support. They already had the support of the military. So when they transitioned, it was bloodless. Like there wasn't really shots fired like that. There wasn't a mass war. Obviously, there was the Russian Civil War, but yeah. I mean, at this point, Caleb believes only the lumpen is alienated, and the working class already has class consciousness. Well, I mean, last thing I just want to say before I end it is that Caleb has basically pushed third world. Like Caleb's pushed third worldist theory. Oh, and another thing I really wanted to add, I really wanted to say this, is that Caleb is a trot because Caleb is pushing this theory that only value producers can engage in revolution. Only value producers can be revolutionary, which is literally Trotskyism, because the entire point of Trotsky was that Trotsky said that the USSR was a deteriorated, and China were deteriorated worker states because they involved peasants, because they were peasant revolutions. They didn't have a developed means of production. They didn't have a developed industrial proletariat. So, like, Caleb already was a Trot. I mean, I just see him making these Trot arguments. These are actual, like, economic Trotskyist arguments. So, yeah, anything. You have any final comments to make, Trav, before I end it? Before I retire for the night?
No, not really. I guess what I'm trying
Do you have
to
anything
say.
to announce?
Oh, as of now, no. I've got some videos coming in mind. I'm gonna be shooting some new content tomorrow. I've got a little inspiration, but again, I've got a few things. I've had quite a bit backlogged. I'm not gonna lie. I've been kind of adapting to working my job, finally being employed, and balancing my channel and just balancing life in general. But I'll get the ball rolling here very soon. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but no, thanks for having me on. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
for sure. I'm glad everyone came out. I'm glad I could settle it out because, I mean, just a basic principle is we should respond to criticism. So, yeah, anyway, thank you guys for watching and see you guys. Peace.